Hello everyone, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. We are on lesson number 3, Peace in the World. Peace in the World, that's the name of the article. Okay, so let me think, what have we spoke about last time? Like I remember. Okay, so basically we've talked about how can we achieve peace in the world. The fact that we see all kinds of flaws in human attributes, or in qualities, or in moral, or in the way of conduct of people, and we want to correct the world, and we're incapable of doing that because, as HaSulam says, the creator or nature resists us. And why does it resist us? Because each flaw is in our own eyes, and actually if we would have seen the whole process just like with a fruit, we would see that the green immature state is not a flaw, it's not a problem, it's not a damage, it's part of the evolution process, and you just need to use it right and to make the most out of each state. And that's why, because if you get to see and understand the general picture, and you get to know the final state, just like if you buy a house and suddenly you have this small tree and you don't know what to do with that, and you go to a person who grows trees, or to Google, and you're just checking it out, what's the tree, and so you have people that know what will come out of it, and they can tell you if this tree will cause you a lot of problems, damage, waste your water, and nothing good will come out of it, or that it will be a great tree and that will give you a lot of fruits and you'll be very happy to sit under its shade. So you need to understand. So if you get to know the purpose of creation, if you reveal it, if you understand the laws of nature, then you know how to use each flaw, and you don't see it as a flaw, you see it as a chance, opportunity to use it correctly towards the end goal. And if you don't, you just suffer like a dog basically, or like a donkey. You get beaten, you don't understand why, you see harmful, bad things, flaws, and you suffer from them, trying to erase them or correct them, and without any success, because nature just resists you. Okay, that's more or less what we've talked. And as we've talked about in previous courses, the purpose of creation is to attain the creator, meaning that each one of us will rise above his own individual shell, his own limited perception of reality, that he identifies himself with this speaking, walking on two animal, with this protein body that is only temporal, how do you say, like temporary. Yeah, okay, I don't want to Google it right now. So you understand, like the opposite of eternal. And if you identified yourself with this limited perception, then you have all the problems. And if you find a way to rise above this ego and to connect to the general system, to nature, to the creator, to this whole network of connections that we are part of, I don't know how you want to imagine that, but it's like whole organism or whatever, doesn't really matter right now. Then you understand how to realize yourself, and how to use each flaw, each problem, each thing that seems as a lack, as a harm, in the most useful, efficient way. And you see that it actually helps you evolve if you're doing that. Okay, so if you're talking about this upper level above us, so here in the article, HaSulam refers to it as a society, because it talks about the level of peace in the world. So he's talking about individual and society. Okay, so the reference to the system or the network is society. And that's why he says on page 86, if you have the book Kabbalah for the student, if you don't, you have the link for the article, just Control F. In this link, good and bad are evaluated by the actions of the individual towards society. Okay? Good, so let's read about it, because it's pretty deep, this stuff. Maybe we'll touch on the deeper things. If not, we'll just explain it in a basic way. So, good and bad are evaluated by the actions of the individual towards society. Before we examine the correction of evil in the human species, we must first determine the value of those abstract terms, good and bad. When we define an act or an attribute as good or bad, we should clarify whom that attribute or act benefits, because naturally I define good and bad according to my egoistic nature. So what's good for me is good, and what's bad for me is bad. Maybe the definition is wrong. To understand that, we must thoroughly know the proportional value between the individual and the collective, between the individual and the collective that the individual lives in and nourishes from in both matter and in spirit. Reality shows us that there is no right to exist for an isolated individual without a sufficient number of people around him to serve him and help him provide for his needs. Hence, a person is born to lead a social life to begin with. And each and every individual in society is like a wheel that is linked to several other wheels placed in a machine. And this single wheel has no freedom of movement in and of itself, as we've seen in the article The Freedom, but continues with the motion of the rest of the wheels in a certain direction to qualify the machine to perform its general role. And if there is some breakdown in the wheel, to breakdown is not evaluated relating to the wheel itself, but according to its service and role with respect to the whole machine. This is very important, because what extends from it is that we cannot define anything as good and bad, but only according to its action or performance in the system and the relationship it has with other wheels. And in our subject, the benefit of each and every person within his collective is evaluated not according to his goodness, but according to his service to the public, and vice versa. We appreciate the attribute of evil of each and every individual only according to the harm one inflicts upon the public in general, and not by one's own individual values. These things are crystal clear both from the perspective of the truth in them and from the perspective of the good in them. This is because what is found in the collective is only what is found in the individual, and the benefit of the collective is the benefit of each and every individual. Who harms the collective takes his share in the harm, and who benefits the collective takes his share in the benefit. Since individuals are part of the whole, and the whole is not worth in any way more than the sum of its individuals, it thus turns out that the collective and the individual are one and the same, and the individual is not harmed because of his enslavement to the collective, since the freedom of the collective and the freedom of the individual are one and the same too. These are very deep stuff. We touched part of it in the article The Freedom. And as they share the good, they also share the freedom. Thus, good attributes and bad attributes, good deeds and bad deeds are evaluated only according to the benefit of the public. Of course, the above words apply if all the individuals perform the role to the public to the fullest and receive no more than they deserve, meaning in a corrected system. Because if you're talking about a cancerous body in which each cell just tries to suck the most out of all the system, then everything is going towards death. Then everybody must be like cancerous, otherwise they die sooner. But in the end, everybody die. But if you're talking about a correcting system, just like in a healthy body, then this is true. And take no more than their friends' share. But if part of the collective does not behave accordingly, it turns out that not only do they harm the collective, but they are also harmed, just like a cancerous cell. We should not, and this is interesting, yeah, and it's pretty clear, I don't know, it's pretty obvious. We should not discuss further something that is known to all, and the aforesaid is only to show the drawback, the place that needs correction, and that is that each and every individual will understand that his own benefit and the benefit of the collective are one and same thing, in that the world will come to its full correction, meaning the only problem is the perspective of the individual, meaning the only thing we need to correct is the way the individual looks on reality, and the only way to correct that is through education. So let's say what is saying in a different way, in a bit of a different way. Okay, so we have a level of the collective and we have the level of the individual. On the level of the individual, as we've talked about, sorry, you don't see this. As we saw in previous, as we've talked about in previous lessons, on the lower level, I see a shattered reality, a split reality, because the ego cuts me off of reality. Then, on one hand, it's very good because I can stand as an individual. I can act out of my own free choice. I can attain the Creator on my own, meaning I'm not enslaved to the system unconsciously. So this is a good thing the ego brings me. The bad thing is that I see a split reality, me and reality, me and others. And because of that, now what we do usually, we just try to suck the most out of everybody, try to be more than everybody, and use everything to our advantage. And we define good as good for our own private self, and bad is something that causes damage. And this causes all the harm and the problems on the flaws in reality, because everyone's trying to be a cancerous cell, and so we have this endless existent war that we need to go through with a lot of suffering for everybody. And then there is this there is this higher level. This higher level is the level in which we are all connected. And again, these levels act in perception, because surely in reality we are all connected. There is only one reality. We're just talking how we see that. So if a person actually can rise above to the higher reality, then it's clear for him that in a corrected system, let's say like a family or like a healthy family, it's clear that if I give my part and if the family is happy, I'll be happy too, and life will be much easier for me. And if I make the hell to my family and I cause them harm, I'll be harmed as well. Okay. Unfortunately, usually in humanity, what happens is that the only way to achieve this state is in a war, because if you have another group, then each one of the groups acts just like an individual egoistic cell, and then you have a connection in the group because of the competition with the other group. Okay, so this is like fascism. Okay, and this is really, I think it's pretty obvious. There is also if you want to look into it, there is what is called price equation, in which he mathematically proven that there is no altruism in nature whatsoever, because each altruism, or let's say a connected state, or acting for the collective on a certain level, is just an egoistic act on another level. Meaning so if my cells, if the particles in the cell work in a connected way, so the cell can exist, it's because of the cell acting egoistically on a higher level compared to other cells. And if the cell connects to other cells, it's in order to help the body live egoistically on another level. And if the body is connected to other bodies, just like in a group or a nation or whatever, in a family, it's because it wants to work against. So every time it's just like a higher level of egoism. But still we call it altruism in our world. But it doesn't really matter. What I want to say is that in Kabbalah it's a bit different, because if you try to do that egoistically, you end up with socialism or communism, and we saw what happened in Russia. Now also there are new ideas in the States, and this brings through all of history, like the idea is nice, yeah, that everybody's connected, it's pretty clear. If everybody if it will be good for everybody, then everybody will be much happier. That's why it was such a high level ideology that attracted so many people. But when you come to implement it in practice, because everybody's egoist, they're just using one another. So again, either they hold the socialism by war with other nations, and so you have connection inside of the state, and then you're fighting your way up. And just like the Nazis, for example, which also were like socialist, national socialists, or you're finding it between groups in the same nation. So every time you're taking it out on a different group. But it doesn't really matter, because egoistically you cannot really live in this reality consciously, because the ego is stronger than you, so you always fall down to this level. And you will always ask, what's in it for me from the connection? I'm giving to the collective, okay, where is my thing? And so the default is always falling here. And if you're taking connecting ideas into the egoistic level, it's very dangerous, because, as I said, like fascism, socialism, all the great leaders that slaughtered so many of their own people actually were socialist originally, meaning that they took this idea of connection and they used it egoistically. So the difference with Kabbalah is that because we operate with the upper light, we actually come to a change of perception, meaning in action, a person rises above the identification with his own protein body and his ego, because we bring the light, and the light is the counter to the ego, and so a person can actually start living in the system, in society. It is called adhesion with the Creator. And when he lives in that, naturally he acts according to that. So for him it's clear that all reality is connected, because he feels that. So he has no question how he can use it for his own ego. Okay, let's see if we have questions about that. Okay, hello. No questions, nice. And here, every time I ascend and I reach a new level, I just receive more difficult contradictions and spiritual challenges. When will the ego finally submit? Never. If it will submit, then you won't have any chance to move forward. You will always, you'll become like, you'll be in a statured state, like no evolution, no development. You shouldn't aspire for that. On the contrary, you should be happy with the new challenge. You should be happy with the ego. If you are not happy with new ego, or with new challenge, or with new resistance, is because you are still living in egoistic perception. And so you measure everything according to what is good and bad for you, and you determine that the ego is bad for you, then you say, I don't want it anymore. But if you somehow, in some way, rise up to a higher level of consciousness and reveal the Creator in something, or be part of this general system, you will measure the ego from that level of perception, and then you'll see that every contradiction, every limitation, every problem that you get is actually a challenge that allows you to add to the system. And so you'll be very happy with that, because it's just, think of it, when you love somebody and you get a chance to do something for them, how much pleasure you have. On the contrary, if you love somebody and you have no chance to express your love because that person has everything and he doesn't need you, then how painful that might be. Okay, welcome, blah, 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 question. There are many good people in the world. They do what is good for everyone. They help others. They care about the universe and the well-being. Why don't they attend the Creator? Because they are doing that out of their ego. There are many people who are altruistic by nature. Also, the definition of altruistic, like corporal altruist, meaning that they extract pleasure from contributing to others. And if they wouldn't do that, they will suffer, meaning they still measure all of reality according to what's good and bad to them, meaning from their own specific ego. That's just that for them, helping others is good. And if you won't let them help others, they will kill you, because they will suffer. So they don't do it in order to attain the Creator. It's completely different from what we're talking. We're talking in Kabbalah about the most egoistic people that inside of them started a new desire because they are not fulfilled with the fulfillments of this world, and so they have a new desire to rise to a higher degree. And this higher degree, they learn that it's about connection. And then these people going to connect in order to attain the Creator, not in order to help the turtles, the dolphins, or other people. Okay. More questions. Okay, I don't see more questions. Are there some people that attend the Creator without even realizing it? No. In order to attend the Creator, you must be actively engaged in the process. You must know what you do. You must know what are the limitations, what are the laws, and attain it. Andrea is saying, even with people incorporeal. Okay, but I don't know what do you refer to. I'm sorry. Not sure what exactly you wrote this in, like in reference to what. Okay, let's continue. We have a few more minutes. So we're on page 87, title. The four attributes: mercy, truth, justice, and peace in the individual and the collective. Once we know full well the desired attribute of goodness, we should examine the things and the means at our disposal in order to hasten that delight and happiness. Okay, so if we understand what is the desired state, how can we come to that sooner? Four properties are provided for that purpose: mercy, truth, justice, and peace. Okay, so we'll need to understand what they mean. Mercy, truth, justice, and peace, what's the difference between them, etc. Those attributes have been used by all world reformers thus far. It is more correct to say that it is with those four attributes that human development has advanced thus far through the government of heaven, in a gradual path, until it brought humankind to its current state. It has already been written that it would be better for us to take the law of development under our own hands and government, for then we will rid ourselves of any torment that the developmental history has in store for us from this day forth. Thus, we should scrutinize and examine those four properties in order to thoroughly understand what we have been giving thus far, and by them we will know what aid we should hope to get from them in the future. Okay, so what he wants to say actually, that what was given to humanity is the possibility to use nature laws and artificially, and by that hastening the process, okay, because the process must happen. The plan is known from the beginning. All the information is there. But if we talk about the government of heaven, what he calls, we see that we have a will to receive. If we get abundance from above, we get some kind of pleasure, then we run, we are excited, we have a lot of energy. And when we don't have anything, then we are like down and we suffer, and we don't want to move until we accumulate enough suffering. And if we accumulate enough suffering, then we're willing to move, we attain something, we want to get to something. And this is a very slow, gradual process in which we advance under a lot of pain. And we see that humanity, even after thousands of years, trying to attain some kind of state of peace with themselves, with society, with nature, didn't attain that or even came close to that at all, as we've seen in the last, like 100 years ago or even less, these two world wars, and we don't see that things are getting better. Maybe we're headed towards a third world war. And what Baal HaSulam says, okay, if you understand how this process works, just like humanity learned how to grow food artificially, how to, make chickens grow faster in an incubator, or help babies grow better in an incubator, and or grow all kinds of vegetables in an artificial way, and by that mimicking nature. That's what we usually do in science. We try to mimic nature and hasten processes. The same happens here. If we understand how the process works, we can build a society, or like a laboratory or a mini model of society, in which we'll use correctly these four properties that he said that humanity failed miserably to use so far, which are called mercy, truth, justice, and peace, in a correct way, in a way that will actually bring us to a balanced state. So this is what he wants to do in the next part of the article. Okay, so I hope that's clear. Let's see if you have questions about that. Ajay is asking, how does it work towards people in corporality? Well, this is a bit tricky. I would set this aside. Remind me, Adria, in a few lessons I'll try to give some also practical tools for life outside of the spiritual advancement. But at the moment, let's keep it inside of a society of people who are actually wanting to attain the Creator and actually feeling the problem and want to build something else. Then later on we'll see how we pass it forward to the rest of humanity. Otherwise it will be too tricky, because if you work in an environment that everybody's completely opposite to you, everybody is just egoistic, working according to like a cancerous cells, just trying to maximize their own profit on top of everybody else in the system, then it's a problem. Okay, does the I answered this. Does faith come before peace? I don't know what faith is. It doesn't talk here about faith. We need to define things very specifically. How do we go with faith? Okay, so again, Blake, you're asking about things that are not related to the article. If Baal HaSulam doesn't touch it here, I'm not too smart to bring things from other places. Let us understand what he writes here. That will be pretty enough for now. Okay, we need to close this lesson. I just want to say that on Monday, meaning the next meeting, Sunday evening your time, Monday morning my time, there won't be a lesson, but we'll go back, we'll come back regularly on like in a week from now. Okay, so have a pleasant evening, pleasant day, and enjoy. See you next time. Bye bye.